You are now listening to the Perceptive Readers Podcast. Welcome, Perceptive Readers. This is James Lynch. You have to laugh with me on this one. Don't you know I just did a almost 30-minute podcast and my microphone wasn't even hooked up to my computer? Well, I'm going to give you the information anyway. I hope I still have some of those brainstorm ideas pop up in my mind, like what's going on, because all of this was, majority of it was coming off the top of my head. It's like, I'm just thinking out loud. So maybe it'll be only 20 minutes instead of 30 minutes since I've already said it anyway. All right. What a way to look on the positive side of things, huh? So what we're talking about in the next couple of podcasts deals with Twitter terms of service. They have updated their policy to go in effect on January 1st, 2020. Now, the reason why I want to go over this, because some serious matters can be addressed by actually doing this. For example, have you heard me say in times past, I think some of you have, understanding the spirit of the law. The spirit of the law. And this is something that's based off of things that have been read in the good book, which, again, I want to make clear, as you know, that whenever I mention the good book, it's not to be trying to say, hey, you have to listen to me on this or that or anything. No, I'm always sharing with you where my mind and thought processes is coming from, you see. And so this is why sometimes you may see me, give this situation a chance, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 times. And then you may see another situation, and depending on the rapport that I have with a person, this person may get 1,000,000 chances, or this situation may get 1,000,000 chances. It all depends on some of the things that we're going to talk about today, because everything is not always based on just something that is written. See, the spirit of the law, or the spirit of the terms of service, it actually lets you know and understand why such a thing was written. I use the example of like seatbelts. In some countries, you actually have a law that you have to wear your seatbelt, the buckle up law. And if you are happy to have a little scrape or skirmish or anything, and you do not have on your seatbelt, you actually can get fined because you're breaking the law. And at the same time, let's say that someone else may see you ride down the street, or neighbor or something like that, and they're not going to immediately sit up there and say, "Oh, I'm going to call the cop because you don't have on your seatbelts," or whatever. No, the point is, they may say, "Hey, you should have on your seatbelt." Why is that law in place in the first place? Because it's meant to protect and save your life. So that's the spirit of the law. It wasn't put into place to cause undue hardship or burden. Well, that's the same thing where we're going to talk about with the terms of services, or the way that Twitter has written up their terms of service. To me, everything is very clear as to the reason why it's written in such a way, why they're implementing certain things. And there are other things where they say, look, we're just going to leave this alone. It's clear why they're doing this. Yet, there is a section where, as you read over it, even though it's clear what they're saying, you can see in some cases why a person may say, I better be careful with this, because a con man may take it beyond, again, what the spirit of it is. For example, see, something can be written and the person can understand it and okay with it, but then it can be taken in such another way if somebody want to go there by causing somebody an undue hardship, that then the next thing you know, it's like, oh man, I'm being accused of this or charged of that, and that's still not what you were even trying to do or what have you. But see, somebody had went there. Let me go a step further, and I'm glad that I'm still going to use this that came up in my mind on the last podcast that I told you did not come through because my microphone wasn't even plugged in. And we're still going along with the spirit of the law. How when you understand the spirit of the law, it helps you to see too that you understand it to such a point, you are not trying to cause undue hardship on a person. And that's why sometimes you'll hear a person such like myself even say, you know what? That's not what the spirit of this term of service or what have you was, but you're going there anyway. And see, so when persons don't understand the spirit, and it's really all most of the time when somebody uses the word spirit, they're meaning it in a good way. It's like, no, I don't want to use it in that, use it in that way. That's not the way that I meant it, because you're using it to actually harm somebody. Now let's go a step further. I use expression, not the expression, but the example where you hear God says not to use his name in vain. You see, and this is getting back to if you hear myself or maybe somebody else use an expression in a professional meeting, you see, that a person is not to use God's name in vain. And that means more than just saying, I'm not going to use a curse word with God's name. It's actually more to it than that. The good book mentions that God is love. It doesn't say God has love. God is acting with love or learning love or trying to fully understand and comprehend love. It says that God is love. What do I see when I read God is love? I make the joke that with my next few statements in this illustration, that I know some of you are going to say, see, I told you God is a woman. I told you God is a woman. And you know me again, I'm going to say again, no, he's a masculine, manly man. But I always say again that he couldn't have created a woman if he didn't have all of those qualities in himself as a complete being, you see. So let's get back with the God is love, because this is important, because we're still, like I said, along the lines too about being able to comprehend the spirit of a term of service or the spirit of the law of something. So since God is love, the grand creator is love, what I see in my mind is actually, as an example, a woman actually suckling a child in that soft moment, you see, that moment of the child feeling comforted, getting his belly full, just feeling safe, feeling love. And it's like it's all around that, just that whole setup, that whole time together that they have, where you know that mother would do anything for that child to eventually have that child take all these loving qualities and nurturing and becoming, again, a full-grown adult with those same type of qualities, you see, of love, of being love. And one thing for certain, you know that mother would never do anything to harm that child at all. Now, would it? No. Okay. Again, keep this in mind. We're talking about still the understanding the spirit of a term of service, or the spirit of a law. Okay? Spirit of a law. So, imagine the child around about 16, gets his license and now wants to buy a car. Now, imagine the child goes to a car salesman, and I emphasized this in the last podcast that, again, did not get recorded, and I want to emphasize it again, that overall, the car salesmen that I've dealt with, maybe only one otherwise, but they are human too, got some wonderful qualities. And so this doesn't mean that, even though I use the term that one car salesman maybe have been a con man, it doesn't mean that all car salesmen are con men. Okay, so don't even go there, because like I said, there's some wonderful persons out there who happen to be in sales and even car salesmen. But in this case, I want to talk about like the terms of service in contracts, even written up with cars at times. There are things that are stated, and if you're going according to the spirit of what's being stated, it's like, okay, all right. Yes, I can agree to that and things of that nature. And yet, if you have an unscrupulous person, and some have found that expression, the devil is in the details, had certainly came to light with them, you see, where they ended up being price gouged and everything else. And they know that one car salesman knew that's not what the person was really expecting or what have you, but yet they did it. Now, that's how an unscrupulous person may take a term of service or law or whatever and put an undue hardship upon somebody that, once again, it's a shame that it was used in that way. Let's get back to that mother, the mother of love, the mother, who loves their child. Now, imagine the mother has the same have a nice car, it's been taken care of for years, and yet the mother end up still saying, I'm going to sell you that car. Let me write up this contract for you. And she just write up a contract that, boy, it's only about maybe a paragraph long. You see, and when you buy a real car, it's not a paragraph long, it's a book long, but that's a different subject. But the point is, let's say the mother, either way, whether she write up a 1-page contract to a longer contract, because that mother is love, you see, that she's not going to take what is written down to cause undue hardship on that child that she has suckled and raised and nurtured and did all of those things. You see what I'm talking about? And so this is getting back to the expression using God's name in vain to help you understand this even more clearer here. How using God's name in vain doesn't mean that you just don't curse at God or use profanity in his name. When God said, do not use his name in vain, he was saying, don't you use my name in connection with causing undue harm to someone else. Don't use my name in vain to take from somebody, lie, steal, or cheat from somebody. You see what I'm saying? Don't use my name in that way, in vain. And we could go into even further detail. So, are you a podcaster or would like to be one? Hi, I'm James, and I would like to tell you how you can make this process smooth sailing for your podcast or one you would like to start. The website is called Anchor. That's anchor.fm. By going there, you will have the tools needed to get you off to a great start of podcasting. I, for myself, have been podcasting for over 5 years now. But notice the features that Anchor has for us. It is easy. With these creation tools, you can edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Yes, even on the fly from your phone, there is an app you can use to upload. Also, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and even Google. You can also make money from your podcast. Some vendors or companies you may be using right now, they do have a minimum listenership. Well, with Anchor, by using them, you will actually be able to build your listenership with the distribution and the tools that they have, and can also make some profit while you're at it. So it's everything you need to make a podcast, to get started, or to enhance your already listenership. You will appreciate Anchor. That's anchor.fm. Here's the difference, because remember, God is love. So he's not going to do that to his child. So terms of service and spirit of the law, a spirit of what's being written, we're going into this of the Twitter contract because since 2010, PoeBooks.com came online, which is owned by James Lynch Jr. And I feel strongly, as some of you know, that I do thank the grand creator, because in my view of the God is love, this was an opportunity to share my audiobooks, create my audiobooks, and do all sorts of things creatively where, I'll be very clear about something where I say, hey, this is just a story, a hypothetical story, even though these stories, you will find, since there's nothing new under the sun, it can always apply in some type of situation. And that's what sometimes persons put in their books in the beginning, that any reference is just coincidental to this or that situation. But stories are meant to help make things in a palatable way that a person can accept and learn at the same time. So, with that being said, I still will say in a minute, hey, this is just a story to help you, to cause you to think, or what have you. And then if I'm talking about the good book in a serious way, you see, which, again, I do from time to time, I say, no, look, pay attention to me here on this one. I'm not making this up. I'm not doing any double meaning or double speaking. And I have to say this. Listen to me very closely on this. Very closely. I put up a statement months ago that I talked about the sanctuary, and I mentioned about how certain things wouldn't be appropriate for the sanctuary, and I said that for a reason, and I'm about to give you that reason now. Make no mistake about it, and I'll say this to you or anyone in their face. The reason why so many people have a hard time understanding the good book is because they done learned so many different ways of double speak, hidden knowledge, deep knowledge. Oh, my stomach just starting to growl now. Deep knowledge and all sorts of other types of knowledge that every time they speak to somebody, then they got to go and actually decipher something else is being said, and then that has to be deciphered or what have you. That when someone comes to them and just says something very clearly with the good book, like I just said about what not using God's name in vain means, it's still hard for them to understand because they have so much of that different type of knowledge going around in their heads and minds that it's still hard for them to understand and see the clear spirit behind what was just said. And that's why so many persons have a difficult time understanding the Bible. They've learned stuff way already beyond when even their minds and bodies were prepared to learn and know these things. See, this is another thing on a separate level of why I told you I mentioned about privacy and things of that nature. I don't ascribe to, some of the persons who like to always say, where everything is connected. Okay, yeah, everything is connected, but that still doesn't mean that the spirit and the God-given of what privacy is goes out the window. It doesn't mean just because you have access to something that you should just look at it and open it anytime you want to because you have access to it, especially against another person's wishes. See, we're getting into terms of service, the spirit of what you're going to see written in Twitter. So you're going to see certain things stated, and I know once again the way that Twitter is actually stating it. Yet, if somebody want to be unscrupulous, how they may take it far beyond the spirit of what it's being said in. And the next thing you know, you do have persons with copyright infringement and things of that nature. Why is this so important? Because since 2010, okay, PoeBooks.com is owned by James Lynch Jr. And at the same time, I even used to have a Twitter handle, which some of you know. So because some have wondered, then why doesn't he have his brand in this area or that area? Where in some of these areas I actually did. And Twitter was the main one, actually one of the first ones that I grabbed. Yet there was such an onslaught of corporate espionage, and I encourage you to look such things up. You can even look it up on the website, that there was an onslaught to literally take the PoeBooks.com brand name and ownership away from yours truly, you see. And as I told one man recently, because he appreciates that I talk about, I guess you could say, the more serious and deeper subjects on matters like this. But it's nice to be able to talk about it without having as much frustration come off my voice as some of those podcasts have. And I'm not removing any of those. But you see, getting back to why this is so important going forward is because over the past 2 months, before I get to over the past 2 months, like what happened to my Twitter handle, it was under such an onslaught. It cracked me up how just a few years ago, when more and more people started talking about, what was it? Shadow banning and things of that nature. And you heard me mention before, hey, I was the testing ground for all of that. You see, shadow banning or what have you. So, this is just what I've dealt with for years, even before all the mainstream people even knew about it. But again, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So, yet with this, eventually, because of all the hacking and things of that nature, it was getting to the point where things were being tweeted out over my PoeBooks Twitter account, things that I didn't even tweet. And so I said, I guess Twitter finally got tired of it. And first they held my account in abeyance, and then they just, locked it down altogether so that no one again could use that brand. But make no mistake about it, it did. You can look it up. You can verify it. It originally belonged to me, James Lynch Jr., as the owner. So with that, the same type of intense effort has been, and I keep using the term onslaught on PoeBooks.com as well since its inception. And what has happened over the past 2 months, that's why I find these terms of services, even by Twitter, very, very interesting, is not only did I start working on protecting my assets, my ownership of my brand, But then I started taking ground, serious, making ground on not only holding on to what I got, but taking back what is the PoeArtistry.com brand. Whether it's from domain names to IP addresses, things of that nature. And see, it's working. And so don't be surprised if you start seeing knockoffs here and there, maybe even all over the world, of intellectual property, content property, things that you may have even purchased, quite possibly, that you're thinking maybe you were actually helping me out, and that I received this or I received that, and I'll tell you right now, no, I didn't. But I'm not going into the details of that. Yet, before we move on, see, and there's something, because it's still coming up to 30 minutes. Just think about this. There may have been some over the years, well, if they, especially initially, would have just came to me and treated me with dignity. And I've already expressed the difference between dignity and respect. But I say, when I talk about dignity, I talk about dignity by being a human being made in God's, the grand creator's image. And so I like to emphasize that because, I'm giving you that, hey, respect is earned. And so, but my whole point is, you cannot even, you don't even have to respect somebody, but it still doesn't mean that you treat them without dignity. You see, and so dignity still requires just basic things, a basic way of even treating a human being. And yet, if you want to go into the good book once more, you'll still even hear the greatest prophet of all even still say, you know what? Now, even if you don't even respect somebody, look at some of these elevated thoughts. I would still want you to treat them as a time. Boy, that's something else. But again, dignity, I want to mention, if certain persons just would have, depending on our rapport, even persons who I didn't like, and persons can verify this, I can have my favorite drink. And even somebody who I don't get along with could have said, hey, can I have half of that drink or some of that drink? Do you think I would pour them half of it? See, those of you who know me probably said, no, you probably would have still just gave him the whole drink, or this person the whole drink. So it's the same thing with a lot of stuff that went on between the straight up con men that were doing all of this and carrying out all this corporate espionage. I related to some people. This is what I need for you to do right now, because I need to be able to tell the difference between who is doing what and why. And this has nothing to do with a lack of faith in this area or that area. I need to know so that I know when to call in this, bring in the authorities, or what have you. This is one of the reasons why now here, the year of 2019, after all these years, that I said again, the PoeArtistry.com is James Lynch Jr.'s, and whatever is mine of taking it back, this is just good business, good professionalism. It's, for the majority of people, it's not even anything personal. And as I said before, though, probably for the majority of those persons, if they just would have came to me and just asked, they already know in their heart and mind they would have received. But instead, it was done in such a way to make a mockery of the PoeArtistry.com on a level that is just plain. And if they're using in God's name, just God defaming, just plain God defaming the way that they did it. And so, we're going to go into the terms of service, and in the next podcast, where we'll break down some things and help you to understand what to look for in this Twitter terms of service that's updating January 1st, 2020. And guess what? I'm sure there'll be many persons talking about it probably and making videos on it. Yet I want to emphasize that there may be one section. There is a section that I think I'll share with you to really look for. And if somebody or someone who's very astute in catching some of these things already, you see, they may say it. And I may even reference them if I happen to look up a video on it, because I already know what I'm going to say. But if somebody does come out with it and they actually cover that one section, I think I'm going to reference that in the video too, what my thought processes was on this as well. So thank you, Perceptive Readers, for being here. And again, really appreciate you. Thank you for sharing the podcast, the new app. Thank you for sharing the new app. It's really growing. The podcast is growing. It's just very nice. You have a wonderful day and take care of your loved ones. Bye-bye. You have just listened to the Perceptive Readers podcast. Remember, until next time, if you read something that encourages you to improve or enhance your life for the better, it becomes your reality.